Catskill High students, welcome back to Crick Water Studios. We are doing 527. We're reviewing the nuts and bolts of Unit 9 so that you guys can do a castle learning coming up. So I'm going to get started right away, and you can see this worksheet works a little different. I'm going to be doing this side, and you can see student completes Part B. So I'll leave that for you, but I do this side. But you definitely take notes as you're going, and you're going to submit the entire sheet. So we're using the zero product property. Now that basically says if you multiply two things and get zero, well, one of them or both have to be zero. So to figure this out, all you need to do is split it, set each factor equal to zero, and you end up with these two tiny baby equations that need solving. And you get one answer is 6, and the other takes more than one move. You gotta finish it out and divide by 3. So you get x equals negative 2/3. So our two answers for that, very straightforward, very quick. All right, let's go to number 2. It says solve this quadratic by factoring. Now remember, we have several different kinds of factoring. This one right here looks like perfect squares. Like, I know what the square root of 4x squared is. It's 2x. And I know what the square root of 9 is. It's 3. That's how I know it's this style of factoring. So we get these two binomials set up. And if you remember, we do 1 plus 1 minus, because these are going to be conjugates. And the square root of that goes in the first slot. So 2x here, 2x here. Square root of 9, which is 3, here, here. And then basically you're back to doing what you did on number 1. 2x plus 3 equals 0. Or perhaps it's 2x minus 3 equals 0. Each one of these requires 2 moves. So x equals negative 3/2. Or divide by 2, and you get x equals positive 3/2. Okay, so once you get it factored, it's really, really straightforward and downhill. All right, down to number 3. Now in this case, it's not that style of factoring, but sometimes it's the GCF style, GCF. Something that divides into both pieces can be removed. In this case, these are both divisible by 2, and they both have an x in them. So you reverse the distributive property, and a 2x divided out of this leaves you with just an x, and a 2x divided out of that is a 5. So now we're at the point where if this times this equals 0, well, we split it and we figure it out. Set 2x equal to 0, set x minus 5 equal to 0. To solve this, it's only one move, divide by 2. Well, 0 divided by 2 is still 0. Done. Over here, add 5 to both sides, and the answer is x equals 5. Okay, so moving on. So number 4, solve this by factoring. So we've seen DOPS, we've seen a GCF, and sometimes it's just plain old unfoil. Maybe your teacher calls it reverse foil. Sometimes they just say factoring a trinomial. And if that's the case, you get the two binomials going, and you got to guarantee me 2x squared, so you're going to go with 2x times x, so that's guaranteed. Things that multiply to make 20. You got 4, 5, 10, 2, 20, and 1. Whatever you use, they both have to be negative. So I'm going to go with minus 5 here and minus 4 here for the sake of the shortness of this video. So my outers are negative 8x, and my inners are negative 5x, which adds up to negative 13x, and there it is, that's the middle. So now you know you have the correct factors. Now you got to just finish. 2x minus 5 equals 0, or perhaps it's x minus 4 that equals 0. This one takes 2 moves, divided by 2. X is 5 halves. And over here, x is positive 4. So we have 2 different answers. And 4 is done. Let's turn this over. All right, you can see that number 5 says solve the quadratic by factoring, and it doesn't look like the ones we just did. They're not in standard form. This looks like a mess. Standard form means a, x squared, then the bx, then the c, and then it'll be 0 on the one side. So these two are out of place. So to fix that, I'm going to reverse. I'm going to say plus 2x on both sides. And line it up with its like term. Make your life easy. I'm going to do 2 moves at once. I'm going to get rid of this plus 6. I'm going to go minus 6. Both sides, minus 6. So these two right here, they both just equal 0. They add up to nothing. And then on this side, you just do the math. X squared plus 7x minus 18. And now you're able to do the unfoil. And x and x, things that multiply to be negative 18. I'm going to say positive 9 minus 2, so that the outers are negative 2x and my inners are 9x. Boom, they add up to 7x. We did it. Split it. Set each one to 0. And make your moves. One answer is 2, and the other answer is negative 9. Okay, so if it's not in standard form, then it's your job to make sure you change it. All right, now, finally down to our quadratic formula. This is new for us and maybe a little intimidating, but it's actually the strongest thing that we have, and it always works. Formula is listed here. Okay, you might want to write that down on your paper. And the a, b, and c come from these terms. If it's in standard form, the a is stuck to the x squared, the b is stuck to the x, and the c is the constant. So in our case, we're just going to write on the side, a is 2, b is negative 17, and c is negative 9. Our job is just to put these numbers where these letters are, and we'll get this. So therefore, x should be equal to negative b, and it's already negative, so that's okay. It's going to flip it eventually. Plus or minus the square root b squared. Please make sure you have parentheses when this is negative, or else we'll get the wrong answer. Minus 4 times the a value, which is 2, times the c value, which is negative 9. All right, my square root's got to go a little longer. Okay. All over twice the a value, 2 times 2 from there. And then it's just calculations. Like I said, this double negative in a row just becomes regular positive 17, plus or minus. That's going to be 289. And let me get a calculation on this. Plus 72 all divided by 4. So we just got to figure out what this is underneath here. I think it's going to be a perfect square. Yeah, I'm getting 361. Now I happen to know the square root of 361. You may not, but it happens to be 19. Like, you can type that in your calculator and it turns into the number 19. So that means you're going to have two different answers here. One, I'm going to squeeze over here. 17 plus 19 divided by 2. And that's where you get 9. And then the other answer is 17 minus 19 divided by 2. And that's where we get, oh, I meant to write divided by 4. Glad I caught that, guys. You guys probably caught me, sorry. All right, so you end up with negative 2 over 4, and that reduces to negative 1/2, okay? So your two answers are 9 and negative 1/2. All right, so that's the quadratic formula being used. And then we have a square root radical review real quickly. Square root of 60, when they say simplest radical form, that means you're going to break it down into two radicals. One of these two numbers you use, you have to know the square root of. All right, I happen to know that 60 is also the same as 4 times 15, and lo and behold, I know the square root of 4. So the square root of 4 is 2. So my answer is 2 radical 15. So your goal is to write two square root radicals, and you're going to free one of them. For now, we're just going to focus on the 48. So I got two square root radicals. This 2 is still here. Things that multiply to make 48. Well, 16 and 3. And I actually know the square root of 16. That's 4. Now these two numbers, 2 times 4, they're allowed to multiply, and you got 8 square root of 3. All right, so that's a review for our next question. You guys got C and D. And we are back down here doing quadratic formula again, but when you look at it, it's set up not in standard form again, which means these things need to maybe reverse and move to the other side. Plus 2x, plus 2x, minus 5, minus 5. So once you get it equals 0, I'm getting x squared minus 4x minus 41, and you're ready to do your ABC thing. So in this case, A is 1, B is negative 4, C is negative 41. Just watch your signs, and let's use that formula. All right, let's plug everything in. X equals negative 4 plus or minus square root. B squared, which is negative 4, minus 4 times the A value. C value is negative 41. All over twice whatever the A value is. In this case, just a 1. Then have some quality time with your calculator. Double negatives become plus. Underneath this radical, this number, which is called a discriminant, you end up with 16 added to 164. Denominator is still 2. So x equals 4 plus or minus square root, and that together is 180 all over 2. Back on the screen, Irvis. There we go. So now we're going to do to this square root radical what we did in number 7. We're going to break it down into 2 radicals that I know. So let me just continue this. Equals 4 plus or minus. I happen to know that 180 is the same as 36 times 5. So I can free this. Square root of 36 is 6. Okay, so x equals 4 plus or minus 6 square root of 5, all divided by 2. Okay, and if you want to reduce, like all of these are divisible by 2, you can set this up like 4 over 2 plus or minus 6 radical 5 over 2, and you can say that will just be 2 plus or minus 3 square root of 5. So that right there is simplest radical form, and you have to do B. It will be very similar. Okay, so you guys have the right side of this worksheet to complete and submit, and the right side of the back page to complete and submit. All right, it's been a pleasure, guys. Have a nice day.